So what I often do as well is if we're pretty quiet right now, but I will often mute the other participants. So if there's, pets or dogs or something going on in the background. So if I mute you or you're mute, don't feel like I'm not, it's not a problem. I just like to make sure that everyone can hear each other clearly. And I definitely want, if you feel like you have a question right in the middle somewhere, you can feel free to, stop or pause. So it's a dynamic. There's a portion of it in the middle where I'm kind of teaching and facilitating, but I want to make sure even during that, if you have questions, you can feel free to ask. Okay, mute right now. So today we're talking about a worthy ideal. I love this lesson because obviously it is the stepping stone, the first part. It's really actually interesting. The more times you go through the 12 lessons, like you go through 12 weeks and then you go again, and if you keep going, it's really interesting to see how your goal shapes and molds and how you start to, you work towards it and you achieve parts of this, and then you're always you want to make sure that right at the beginning you're setting up a clear idea of where you're going and have a big goal. But it's fun as you go, the more times you go through it, to be able to reflect back on how it's evolving and shaping as you start to change and you start to change your results. So it's really fun. The name of this one is A Worthy Ideal. So I like to call it out. It's not called a goal, like lesson 1, creating the goal. It's called A Worthy Ideal. And it's really, you may have heard this quote before, but I always like to share it. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. You have to know where you're going, but success is not defined once you get there. It's the progressive realization. It is working towards it. It's taking steps, falling and getting back up and continuously working towards it. If you think of, successful people in your life in any area or whatever, it's not that they achieved it and then they just stayed flat and therefore they're successful. It's a continuous continuous process. They're continuously working, continuously evolving and growing. So we want to make sure we're always thinking we want to create that big worthy ideal, but the process. You've probably heard this idea, the concept, but just really letting that resonate, that it's the process of change and evolution of yourself to that immediately starts to feel successful. And you want to feel successful at that point. Otherwise, that the belief and the feeling will hold you back. So you want to feel success the whole way through. Okay. So really quickly, just when we get to lesson 1, I want to recap, and Brenda's and you on the group calls. These are just some tips for the webinars. Responsible for learning. So I always, make sure that, you're listening to the lessons and trying to do the worksheets. Just taking some accountability to do what you can. Maintain confidentiality. So we definitely want to make sure everyone's comfortable sharing whatever you want to share, and we keep it confidential amongst ourselves. Attend all the sessions as much as able, and complete the exercises. That's like the worksheets. Cell phone, email, that's just trying to minimize distractions so you can really focus, and participate by sharing. This little diagram, I apologize, it's a bit blurry. I'm getting a new one made, but this one just really visually helps to explain the program. I find it's good to refresh on this part periodically. Lesson 1 is where you're going, is creating the goal, that worthy ideal, getting clarity on that. Lesson 2 to 9 is working through those paradigms, the knowing, doing gap, attitude, beliefs, fears, really trying to break through some of those things that hold us back. Lesson 10 to 12 is when we get into leadership, sharing with others, expanding beyond. So it's that's sort of just, and like this visual, I think it just helps. Hopefully you agree, it helps to kind of give you a blueprint of what to expect. So let's go through some wins. Whitney, would you like to share a win? I just can see you on the screen here. I usually just go through in whatever order, but.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking about which one I wanted to share, and I was thinking about my hockey training, and I just feel like my win would be that I've gained so much self-confidence that it's really showing with my clients. And I have a lot of parents kind of just really excited to tell me like their kids' improvements and how well they're doing on the ice and stuff. So I just feel like that's a huge win for me, that I know that I'm making a difference in their ability to grow, even just themselves, and not just on the ice, but their personality and stuff too.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
That is just so like deeper meaning to this, giving them and doing something like a physical sport like that for sure will build them their confidence, they're as a person, not just the physical ability. That creates the paradigm. If they, if they're supported and encouraged and given opportunities and taking risks, and if they fall and you help them and say good job, like that builds their, oh sorry, I slept funny. I gotta be careful how I turn my neck. That totally builds their paradigm, like that will really, that, so you are like giving such an amazing gift to those kids. Can you clarify a bit, like just when you meant but your confidence, like about like how that feel, what that
so
compared to before, like what it, just trying to clarify what you mean.
Yeah, so before,
confidence with parents, or
before I felt my insecurity with the self-image was that I felt maybe too young to be a hockey coach, and that I was a girl teaching, most of my clients are 80% like little boys, and kind of the old, like I always say the old Whitney, but like the old paradigm kind of thing, or before my self-image really became something, was kind of worrying about what the parents were thinking, because they're always sitting there watching, and it would make me really nervous. But then I thought about it, and I know what I'm doing, and I know exactly what I want to do with their child in the sense of how I want to progress them. So I just became a lot more confident, and just executed it and not worried about what the parents say or do. And I just know that I have the connection with the kid, and that we kind of grow from that. So just things like that.
Yeah, that's really exciting. That's awesome. Especially that is an interesting, it is interesting dynamic, because, if the parents have a mind, maybe I don't know if I want to say more traditional, but if, it has historically been more male sport, and, so you don't know what they think and what they're thinking, or what they are thinking, what they're not thinking. But technically it doesn't, what they think is not our business, not in a bad way. Like I mean that in a positive way. Like it's not, that's their thoughts, and that's their paradigm, it's their beliefs, and then we have our own separate ones. But as long as you know what you're doing is, like you said, like you know what you're doing, you're supporting them, you're giving them, you are skilled, you're knowledgeable, you're completely able to do it, then and that confidence will completely show, and that will change how the parents think as well. If they're thinking, oh, I don't know about her, and she's kind of hesitant, and she seems like she's not sure if she knows what she's doing, then that feeling will come out. And so the more confidence you have with it, and they're like, yeah, I got this, we're good. And then they're just like, oh, okay, she's got it. I think we're good.
So. One of the biggest things that stuck with me is I forget which lesson it is, but when Bob Proctor, and you talk about it a lot as well, when how many kids hear the word no, or like, is it no, or you can't, like, you don't do that, or whatever. So I really try to A, make it fun, but B, work them hard, and then not use the word no or don't do that. So I've been working really hard with that, and I think I've been doing really well with that. So.
It's funny when you're not conscious of it, how many times you might say no, and you might not be you may not even be doing it in a negative way or a negative attitude. You may be doing it because because your intent is to help them. You're like, no, don't do that. No, don't do it that way. No, don't do that. You might be doing it with a positive intent, but that's not how the body physically will receive it still as a no. And I think I should remember the number. I say it in my seminars a lot, but yeah, it's like 150,000 no's that children hear from until by the time they're 17, and only like 30,000 yeses. It's 30 no's for every one yes is the ratio. So 30 times. So when they're thinking and they're older and they're thinking, can I do that? Can I go after that goal? Am I able? Their automatic programming subconsciously is, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't have the skills. I don't have the education. I shouldn't do that. That's not smart. That's not safe. That's dangerous. Like what? It's not conscious. So I love that you have the opportunity to, and actually I don't know if you've met Carrie, but she's another client. She's usually on the Thursday night call. And she's actually she's a teacher of teachers, but she does work with children as well. So it's nice to be able to really give that back, that new way of thinking to younger generations. That's exciting. Yay. Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. Brenda, would you like to share?
Sure.
I know you said it was a busy week. a lot going on. It sounds.
Well, it's been frustrating because I've had a nasty cold for 2 weeks, and my computer died, and it took me a week to get a new one. And of course, when you're sick, you're not sleeping well, so I feel like been in a big fog. However, the win, there's probably been a couple, but the one win that I'm going to share today is one of my goals is to release 100 pounds. And I have made it to the 20-pound mark this week. So I was kind of stuck for a while, so I'm really happy about that.
That's amazing.
And it's not just, to look better, but it's just going to, the more I progress with that, it's just going to allow me to do the things I need to do, and to enjoy it more, because I'll feel better. I'll have the energy I need to go after my other goals. So I'm excited because I'm getting there. Yeah.
So exciting. And and that's big. That's amazing progress. Like it's really amazing progress. Like and I know, like you feel motivated, you get as you get momentum. It's tricky when there's a plateau, and then you feel you want to break free. But good thing we have Whitney on mute. She has her horse. It's a beautiful dog. It's ginormous. I can see. But it's really you want to really be grateful and reward those path along the way. That's so good. And I love, in case Whitney hasn't heard this term before, I do say it a lot with people, but I don't know if she's heard me mention it, the idea of releasing weight. And I really use that a lot. And Bob Proctor uses that, and Tony and some of the other coaches I work with. And even other consultants, because I know other consultants around the world that I know who've used it in their own health, who've used this program. But really, the word release is important. It's very, very different, because it's releasing it permanently. If I lose it, I could find it. I don't want to find it. I'm releasing it to the world, and it's like letting a butterfly free.
I've lost and found 100 pounds twice already. I don't want to find it again.
Yes. That's good. That's exciting. Well, that's awesome. I'm very excited for you. And I'm excited to have you here too. I'm so excited to, and it's unfortunate if you weren't able to, when you need technology to be able to, effectively do the lessons and everything consistently. So it's unfortunate timing, but you have lots of time. So it's all right. Your body maybe needed that time to not have the computer to heal from the sick cold. So maybe perhaps it all works out. But awesome. Okay. So I'll just mute you guys. So we'll go through and talk a little bit about lesson 1. This one is good. And then you guys both know this. And even I think the people who will be listening to the recording have heard it. But this program, to change paradigms, requires repetition over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So I share these concepts that I'm about to share all the time, every week with people. And it's amazing. I get to benefit because every time I talk about it, I'm repeating it as well in my own for myself. So it's, you know, it's an amazing opportunity to be able to share this. Even if you've heard it before, it's always going to be new enlightenment. So the idea of big goals, I love this little photo. You know, we talk a bit about the Wright brothers, the first plane off the ground. They didn't have the resources, they didn't have the funding, they didn't have the education, they didn't have the support from their family really to create a plane, the airplane. And they were up against people who did. They were up against others who were trying to get a plane off the ground, who were engineers, who had lots of funding and who had lots of support. And yet the Wright brothers were the ones who were the first to do it. And they failed about 1,000 times in the process. Not everyone has a goal of something so dramatic that you're trying to get a plane off the ground for the first time in the world. But it really it's exciting to see what's possible when they believe in themselves, when it's really important, and kind of are willing to do whatever it takes. So that's the big type of goal we're going for, something really big and important. I love this quote from Earl Nightingale. He says, "People with goals succeed because they know where they are going." It's as simple as that. Most people, if you ask 9.5 out of 10 people, do not have a big, clearly defined goal for their life, for their career, for their business. They may have a bunch of little goals and the variations and a bunch of small things, but most people, actually, a lot of people don't even have that, but most people do not really have a clearly defined goal. And there's a lot of reasons for it. We'll talk a little bit about that today, but those who are successful have a clear goal and they don't lose sight of it. You don't write it once, say it once, and then a few months later be like, oh yeah, I forgot I wanted to do that thing one time. It has to be something that you are continuously reminded of, and that's why we have the goal card, and you're writing it in your journal every day once it's all, you know, cleared up. So that's why it's really important to have that clear direction and focus. Okay, so this book, U Squared, amazing little book. Each chapter is one page. It's really good. It's all about the idea of taking quantum leaps in your life. But I'm just going to share one section of it. It says, the experts generally agree that people typically only use 10% of their true potential. If we accept that argument, then even if there were no other resources outside of yourself that you could bring on to bear on the situation, you could still do 10 times as well as you've been doing. So I really love that, because we so often, when we create an idea of a goal or we think we want a goal, we don't even let ourselves consider the goal because we think we don't have the circumstances, the resources, the time, the money, the education. We don't think we have what we need. So we don't even let ourselves think about that, create that goal. But if we believe this, then we know that we could actually do 10 times better with no additional resources. We just need to have that clear direction. We need to know where we're going. We need to change our paradigm. And it takes a process and it takes time. There's some leaps that happen overnight. Some leaps take months, and you know, it's all, everyone goes through the process differently. But it's really exciting to know this and to really think about it. That, like, honestly, I know I'm doing substantially better than I was doing, and without additional resources. Like, literally from studying this material over a year, like over and over and over. And there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of things that have happened where I can see my behaviors and my actions really improving. I'm not trying to brag about myself. I'm just wanting to share an example. Like, it really is interesting when you can look back. So, how do we set goals? So the famous A, B, and C goals. The A-type goal, something you know how to do. This beautiful car looks like it may be very, very expensive. So maybe that's not an A-type goal. But an A-type goal, essentially, for some, is really just doing something you know how to do. So if you've purchased a Mazda and you want to get another one, you know how to do it, or you've done it before. If you want to lose weight, you've done it before, but you might find it again. So we got to release it instead. But it's something you know how to do. The B-type goal, that is something you think you know how to do. So if this happens and this happens and this happens and I do these things, then yes, I believe I can do that. This is really where people get capped, like really get stuck. And I'll, because that's what we're taught, unfortunately. That's really what we're taught about creating SMART goals, realistic, logical, use, whatever. Usually realistic and logical are the biggest factors that cause us to never go past this because we're using our logic and our reason. But we want to put those aside for now and go after what we really, really want, So when you're going through these exercises, and I know Whitney has been evolving her goal, so we should do a touch base again. But when you're really going through and writing out your list of wants and answering those questions and reflecting back, like you want to be going back to this all the time. Like you have to be consistently focused on it every day. And if it doesn't quite get you excited or isn't quite right worded, then we just keep working on it until it's perfect. And then even after that, you might do that for a couple of months and say, you know what, it's not quite there. I might tweak it a bit. Again, we want to make sure we have the direction is the same. We don't want to be switching it if that doesn't work and then switch it over here and then switch it over there. We want to create some direction that's clear, but the actual wording, the shaping, the very, very clear vision of what it is might move around a little bit until it gets to be what you're so emotionally excited for. So just a couple of things I want to touch on at this point. What often happens, and you guys have both been through lesson 1, so you've already got the idea of thinking big and dreaming big, but just take a moment when you're over the next little while and just take a moment to think about how you're thinking. What are you thinking? When you're writing down your list of wants, are you thinking, yeah, I'd like to do that, but I can't because of this and that, and I can't because of this, and I'd like to, but I can't because the so-and-so does this, and I don't get that situation over there. So, and it's automatic. This is what your paradigm is, those automatic thoughts. You're not consciously thinking those automatic thoughts of doubt, worry, fear, or reasonings that it can't happen. So you want to just be cognizant of, as you're going through this, what are those automatic thoughts that are coming, and is it true or is it not true? It may be a fact, but is it really a fact that's going to hold me back, or is it something that I can work through? And sometimes in lesson 1, you haven't created perhaps the full self-image or the belief yet that you can break through it, but I'm telling you, you can. It just sometimes, depending on the stage that you're at. So as you're going through this, thinking about, what are those automatic thoughts that are coming? Are they positive, or are there some that are limiting beliefs, and try to be aware of them. And then the other thing that can happen is when you're creating the goal itself, sometimes people get stuck instead of starting from where they want and then having the doubts as to why they can't, they actually start from a B goal and try to push it forward. So they'll start with, well, I have this education, so maybe I could do something in this field. I have, I live here and this has this, so I could maybe do that. I'm not saying that you don't do those, like those are options for you, but just make sure that you're not limiting your ideas from your current state. Because then you're going to if you want those things, of course, if you love it and you want it, then it makes sense. But I hear it quite a lot where people are like, well, I'd like to do that because, or I have this experience, so it makes sense for me to do this. But is that what you want? Is that what you want, or is that what's logical and what makes sense? So just kind of a combination of those two things of being aware of what's pushing you forward, and is it what you really want, or is it just what you think you should do, and then be aware of what other things might be holding you back. Now I'm telling you this, like I don't want you to feel like you can't leverage your existing skills and your existing education if you enjoy it and you're passionate and it's valuable to you. Of course, I just want to make sure that we don't use it as a limitation. Okay, makes sense? Sounds good. And there might be, to be honest, Sandra Gallagher shares a quote. I should actually find it. I think I share it in one of the lessons but she says you can use all of the skills and training and experience that you've developed in one profession, and you can apply it to another. So you don't, if you think that way and realize that, then you can say, oh, you know what, the skills that I learned here, you know, that working with people, you know, dealing with these health things, dealing with, you know, even like financial experience or whatever, there's a lot of skills and experiences that can be brought to a completely different profession and can be totally leveraged. So it's never a failure. It's never a loss, even if not a failure, but you're never losing it if you go to a completely different profession. It's just about thinking differently. How can I bring those skills to a very different profession? I actually thought when I opened the health food store, I was doing that. I was using all my skills and experience in a corporate world because I worked for a retail corporation. So I learned about merchandising, about how to pricing, about negotiating with suppliers, about store displays, about advertising, about leading people. But I did it in a corporate environment where we were creating plans for the retail stores. So in this example, like obviously you can see the correlation. But then when I went to my own retail store, it's very, very different. But a lot of those skills I brought with me. Since we're kind of going off on this topic a little bit, the one thing some people know, I don't know if you guys both know, I would say my opening the retail health store was where I used my I used my current experience and background to say what would make sense for me to do next. What would make sense? I love nutrition, so that would make sense to find something in health and nutrition. I'm experienced in retail. I worked in a retail corporation. I know pricing, negotiation, I know that, so that makes sense. My parents are business owners. They own stores in retail malls. So it was like my resume made sense for me to open a health food store, but it wasn't what I really wanted. I thought it was what I wanted. No one was pushing me whatsoever. I thought it was what I wanted, but I created the goal because I thought I knew how to do it. I created the B goal because it seemed like it made sense. It seemed logical. It felt like it was going to work because I have on paper what would make sense for someone who should do this. But because it wasn't what I really, really wanted. What I really wanted was to be able to teach and help and coach people, not run a physical retail business. But I didn't know that because I didn't know what I know now. And I'm glad I didn't know what I know now because then I wouldn't have done it. And if I didn't do it, I wouldn't have built all those skills and training and education information that I now have to take with me. So everything is a learning. There's no failures. Everything's a learning opportunity. But it is interesting when I look back on my life, I always felt like I created goals and I achieved them, but I created really good B-type goals. Never, ever did I create a C-type goal until I found Bob. And then now it's all exciting. So being realistic is the most common path to mediocrity. I love this quote because it's important for us to reflect, and it's also important for us to see other people who are successful. And he's had lots of ups and downs in his life. Most successful people do. I think probably actually all successful people. And success is such a vague term anyways, you know, but yeah, it is important to really keep in mind. A goal is something you're going after that you've never done before. Another important point, I just like to call this one out because it is really important to reflect back and keep that in mind. It's something that we're going after that we've never done before. And if you really believe that and you're really thinking that way, it will make when you're going through the goals, it'll make the goal will be different because you're like, oh shoot, I've done that before. So I got to change it a little. Change the meaning, change the reason, change the process, change it in some way. So the next piece I want to just share quickly is the first rule of decision making. You could almost call this the first step to your goal. The first step to your goal is making a decision. And the first rule of decision making is decide right where you are with whatever you have got. These concepts all tie together. You know, we talked about Price Pritchett. You could do 10 times better than what you're currently doing without any additional resources. We're never going to have the perfect circumstances and situation and information and resources. So we have to just make a decision knowing that we don't have the perfect circumstances, but we're willing, to do whatever we can. The one thing with the decision, I really like to call this out. I know Brenda, you've read it. I'm pretty sure you've read it probably a few times, Whitney, but it might have been a little while ago. The decision article. Page 19 in your workbook, decisions. I find it so valuable. I find you might read through the whole thing. You can take this opportunity just to read through it. You might find that there's like a few paragraphs that really resonate with you. For me, I found the first paragraph, and then I found a couple paragraphs on the third page, and I just read them over and over and over. So I like the idea of reading a page a day or reading the whole thing, but what's most important is that you're reading things that are meaningful to you. You don't want to be just reading the whole thing, and if it's not all meaningful to you right now, then you're not going to get the value out of it. So if you go through and just find a few paragraphs that are really meaningful to you and that are calling to you right now. It's part of lesson 1 because we need to make a decision that we're going to do this for the next 6 months. But yeah, really take the time to just go through and maybe even just pick some sections that really call to you. You can read the whole thing or read parts of it every day, but the most important thing is to find some areas that really call to you. I love the first one, the first paragraph. I'll just say it because it's really short. There's a single mental move which you can make and in a millisecond will solve enormous problems for you. It has the potential to improve almost any personal or business situation you will ever encounter, and it could literally propel you down the path to incredible success. We have a name for this magic mental activity. It's called decision. Like, oh my gosh, all I need to do is make a decision and I could be propelled into success, incredible success. So I really love it. But it's true. It's true. And if we think about it, we want to get what he talks about in that article. He talks about making decisions quickly and sticking to them. Most of our society takes a long time to make a decision. We take forever. We think about it back and forth. Eventually we make a decision. And then if it doesn't feel right or doesn't quite go right or we fall, we just drop it and quit and go back to the old way. So we make a decision slowly and we change our mind quickly. We need to make the opposite of that. We need to make decisions quickly with incomplete information, just making a decision based on the best of my knowledge and my experience at this moment. I'm going to make a decision, even though I might fall, it might not be right, but I'm just going to make a decision and then stick to it and stick it through until, and then if it isn't feeling right or, take the time in the process to really work it through before you make that decision. So that is where we start. So I'm going to share really quickly a few goal examples, if you'd like. I'm going to actually take off my blazer. I'm starting to overheat. My green blazer. So again, you guys have done goals, and I know, but you're still working on it and evolving and changing a little bit. So I want to recap a few of the key things. One of them is that it has to be present tense. And when you're thinking present tense, I really find it valuable to think, like, put yourself in a year from now, even 6 months to a year from now. Put yourself there and look back. Like, just, I find, visual. Like, I'm looking back on my life, and I'm here. I've got it. I've achieved this. This is the present. And I'm looking back on the amazing story that happened just now, and I can't even believe what happened, and it's crazy. So you want to be thinking, because it's hard to put ourselves in the present tense today because it's not today's reality. So if you put yourself in the present tense a year from now and think about what it will be and reflect back, then that can kind of create the emotion associated with it while you're thinking about the goal. Positive language. We always want to make sure we're never saying, I'm so grateful that I no longer sleep in the morning. You want to say, I'm so grateful that I wake up early and energized, right? It's the same thing. It might mean the same thing, but you want to always be conscious of using the positive language. Specific, very important. You want to be specific and you want to have a date. The specificness of it is something that really does vary quite a lot from person to person. What I like to say when it comes to specific is you want to have a picture of it. So a picture in your mind, or if you can get physical pictures, that's great. If it's trip you want to go on, and a home and a car, and you want to donate to this cause that's important, and you can, if you can get visual pictures of or like lifestyle factors, like if you can get physical pictures onto a vision board, then that's going to create that you have a specific, because you have an actual picture. You just have to take the time to find the pictures that are the right things, that resonate, that fit. The wording itself is going to be, you know, you're not going to describe the color of the counter in your kitchen in your goal, because that would be take you forever. But you want to have that picture in your mind, even though the words may not be as specific. Okay. Would you like me to go through a few of these, or I can explain what if they work or not work, or did you feel like you have an idea of any thoughts? Yeah, I'm okay either way. I'm not saying that they're right. There's some things I like about them, and there's some things I don't like about them. No opinion. It's hard because you're muted. Well, why don't I go through a couple just real quick, and take it from there. So the first one says, I'm so happy and grateful now that I've purchased my first investment property. So the reason that, for me, that wouldn't be enough, because the investment property is too vague. Unless that person has a picture of the investment property on a vision board that they're looking at, and they know it's a beautiful home that that's gonna be valuable, it's in a great location, whatever it is. But the word investment property can be so vague, and Sandy, Gail Gallagher herself, has a story in her own life where she manifested what she wanted, but she hadn't made a clear picture. And she ended up with this house on the water, but it was so close to the water that it was right on the sand, and her house was always full of sand, and the waves were crashing so loud and she couldn't sleep at night. So she had an idea. She wanted a house on the water, but she hadn't really made a clear picture. So that example, that first one, my first investment property, they may not need to have it in writing, as long as the picture is very, very clear. And I also would like, and the thing is, the other thing with that is that for some that's a C-type goal, for some that might be an A-type goal. If they've already purchased an investment property in the past, then that would be a base camp goal. It would be a stepping stone towards the bigger goal. If that is something that they've always wanted, and it's really, really important, and that's really what they want, and they've never done it before and they don't know how, then that might be a C-type goal. So it completely depends on the individual. I'm gonna jump to, well, I'll just go through them all quickly, I guess. The next one is, I'm so happy and grateful now that I've booked and paid for our family holiday to Italy. It feels amazing that I finally have the holiday I've always dreamed of. So I like the way this is worded, in the way that sense that it says it feels amazing to finally have the family holiday I've always dreamed of. Like, it feels good. It feels like it's really important to her or him. It feels like they, really want it. And I love that it says booked and paid for. Booked and paid for, so it feels like they had the ability to pay for it, so there's no miscommunication about that part in her goal or his. The only thing I would say is, like, again, is that really the most important, is that the important thing? So a trip to Italy for some might be, again, a really big part, really think it's really, really important. For others, if they've already traveled to other, they've been to other countries in Europe, or they've done other travel, it doesn't mean don't do it and don't focus on it. It might be a base camp goal, but it may or may not be a C-type goal. So it totally depends on the individual. I've been to Holland once, but I was like 16. So I've never been to anywhere else in Europe. So, if that was something that was really, really important to me, then that might be something that I would have as part of my piece. Sometimes I'd like to say, if there is a trip that's really important, another way around it is going to the third one there, is saying, I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm earning $500,000 from multiple sources of income. My financial position is improving every day. Because that income will allow for some of the other things, right? That family trip, that investment. So that when you get into a financial goal, it does make it a lot more, it does often contribute to some of the other things on the vision board that require income to be able to do. However, for a lot of people, writing that number 3 would not get people's feet on the ground in the morning. A lot of times it wouldn't. Some people may, but a lot of times it doesn't, because if it's too big and they don't believe it, then they just they don't believe it. So if you don't believe it, you're not excited to get your feet on in the morning. Like if it said $1 million, even more so, like you maybe can't, like you can create the belief, but they may not have the belief on day one. And then the other thing is there's just no specific description of where that money's going. And the money itself, like if you get $500,000 in the bank and you do nothing with it, then no one's life improves. So you want to make sure that if you're writing a financial goal, there's a very, very clear picture. You have to have the vision board. You have to have a long description written somewhere. You have to have, again, ideas or pictures or things that you can reflect on. And even adjusting the wording in that one, like you might say, so that I can give to my family and, we can have financial freedom and we can be happy and relax and we can give back. You may add some words or things to that goal number 3 there to make it more meaningful, even in the sentence, in addition to having, lots of pictures or ideas of where that money is going. But I find that's just really important. I think you guys know that, but just when you have a financial goal, the number is not what motivates, it's what does that represent. So you have to have a very clear picture of what it represents. And the last one just says, I'm so happy and grateful now that Katie and I have diversified our family business and we are now exporting our product around the world. We've created more opportunities for our family members to be involved in the business and we love what we do. So I do like this one. When you really think of it, like sounds like they had a small family business and they've really grown it, expanded it. They're now exporting around the world. And now they have given opportunities for their family members to be able to be involved and benefit from that being a part of the business as well. And at the end it says, we love what we do, ! That's the kind of emotion. You need to have some emotion in it. If there's not something that says like that you feel it, you have to feel it. You have to feel it. When you read it, you have to feel it. Like the one up above on number 2, it says, that holiday I've always dreamed of. Like it doesn't have to be that wording. It just for you has to be emotional. But yeah, so that last one there's no actual financial number on it, but the concept for them is that they've been able to really grow and expand and go around the world and their family members are able to be involved and they're really excited. You want to make sure that like they're profitable, like they want to make sure that they're not just, that they may want to add a financial goal into that just, again, for the specificness of it, because you could be selling $1 million, but if your costs equal $1 million, then you're making 0. So, so there may be some times where they may want to specify that. That's a bit more of a business goal as well, but it could be for anyone, or any individual entrepreneur as well. Awesome. Do you have any questions about those goals? Like, I know I've had people have different questions. There's quite a range of different things there of like levels. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, excuse.
I'm just looking at the dates are sort of concurrent.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, would this be an example of one person setting a goal to reach by a certain time and then the next and the next and the next, or is this just a sampling of different ones, would you think, or do we just
I like what you're thinking, but not necessarily. That's not that wasn't the intent necessarily of how it's written, but
okay.
I like that you've said that, because now that kind of sounds exciting.
Yes.
Ooh, that person's really awesome. They get all these things if that's what they want. But I do think it is valuable to, once we've set the big goal, especially if it's like a year away, to have base camp goals, to say, okay, over the next 2 months I want this, or the next 3 months I want this, and those, when you're making those smaller goals, that's really when the decision article, because it has to, really have to make a decision, because it's not it's not we're not driven by the big long-term thing.
Right. Yeah. I think I sort of worked on my goal previously in that, but I never caught the aspect of the date, putting the date to it.
Right.
It was kind of just a vague thing. So I that helps me.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because the thing with dates, the date, we want to put a date because our minds, as humans, it does help to have a date, because it has something to work towards. That's how we work in a time world. Like, that's how we operate. But it's really just planting. We're planting a seed and we're watering it, and we're going to kind of see the gestational period. It's not 100% black and white. So like sometimes you might get there faster or it might take longer. And we, actually what Bob says is if the time if the time has passed and you didn't achieve the goal, there's two reasons. One is, did you really believe it? Did you believe it? And that's lesson 8. And I believe it's lesson 6 and 8 combined, self-image and belief. Did you really, really believe it? Did you believe it at the deepest level of your being that it was really possible for you? And if it's okay if you didn't quite believe it yet, but that might be why you didn't quite achieve it yet. And we'll work on belief and we'll develop and further it and adjust, and we can still get there. That's why the date is just an estimate. But because we know that now, that up front, that belief is one of the reasons, then we want to really focus on that belief. I only actually heard Bob say this like fairly recently, so I didn't know this when I first started. But so the first reason is belief. Did you believe it? Did you believe it was possible for you? Did you believe it was really going to happen by that date? And the second reason is, did you give it your all? Did you do everything that you could do to achieve it? And it doesn't mean that I didn't sleep ever because I was working 24/7, but it means, did I give it my all? Did I give it the best of me while still making sure I was giving, supporting my family and my life, and like having I don't believe it in giving all of you and then everyone else suffers in the process of achieving a goal. But did I really put myself out there, do the things that make me uncomfortable, do the things that scare me? And again, maybe we did a bunch of them, but not quite all of them yet. And that's why we're doing this. That's why we work through the terror barrier and fear, and it's a continuous process. But yeah, so that's kind of, so the date is important, very important to give us a range, an estimate, and we want to try to make that decision right up front to say, yes, I'm going to create that belief and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And then just kind of go through the process, go through the system, learn the material, do the things that make us uncomfortable. The 5-second rule, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of, count backwards from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you're about to do something that's uncomfortable, or you get the intuitive nudge that you should do something, or you should take action, it's actually really effective for health too. If you get the intuitive, this craving to do something, pause and say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm fine. I don't really need to eat that cookie. I was confused for a second there. Yeah. Whitney, did you have a thought on that?
Yeah, it's actually so crazy that you said that, because I went to
my... You seem surprised. Like I was there was something going on in your mind.
Because I went to see my osteopath lady today, and she's like, have you heard of this book, the 5-second book? Or what was it, the 5-second?
I think it's called the 5-second rule, Mel Robbins.
Yeah, so anyways, so crazy that we were talking about her today, and because I was talking about Bob Proctor and my personal development journey, and then she was like, yeah, have you ever heard of Mel Robbins? And I was like thinking about it, and then she showed me her books, and I was like, I think I could definitely read that. And I just
now you're supposed to read it, because you just got 2 touch points in one day.
Yeah. So,
you're like, all right, I get the idea, I get the message.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite funny. But yeah, I think that book, it's either fairly new or they have been doing some promotion about it. I know of Mel Robbins. She's bold. I don't know what you want to say. Strong. She's very blunt, I guess, maybe. But really some good tips. She does the 5-second rule was talked about recently with network marketing, actually. So it's good, but I find it really is helpful with when you want to do something that's uncomfortable. When you think you should do something that will be a little uncomfortable, then you just count back and start. Just do it. Okay. It helps to calm the mind, physiologically. It actually helps to calm the body a little bit, rather than going from 0 to picking up the phone. Awesome. So the worksheet. Sorry, I guess I can leave it here quick. I'm just gonna grab my phone, because I don't know what time. We didn't get a glimpse of Mom. We're almost out of time. We only have 5 more minutes. So the worksheets for this lesson, I think you guys have both done before, but they really take the time to go through and reflect back and answer all those questions, and then try to get that clarity. So if you want to email me when you get an idea or a few options or something that you think, or set up a one-on-one if you don't feel like you're ready to get the writing but you want to talk about it, then we can do that as well. But I want to make sure we get to the point where the written goal is clearly articulated. Okay. So Bob loves to share this quote. It's good. It's very nice. God's gift to us is more talent and ability than we'll ever hope to use in our lifetime. Our gift to God is to develop as much of that talent and ability as we can in this lifetime. And it's really nice to think of that. Like if we literally have more talent and ability than we will ever hope to use. So let's just give back and use as much as we can in our lifetime. So do you have an accountability that you'd like to share? Think of anything? Do you have an idea? Either one, do you want to start?
I'm just doing my elevated thoughts journal and really writing down. I'm still having the time to reflect spot. That's the hardest part for me. So because with working at the bar 5 nights a week, I'm getting in at 3 a.m. and I'm just going right to bed.
Oh my gosh, 5 nights a week now. I thought it was 3.
I know. So up until I leave, there's been a lot of events scheduled. So he's giving me, which is great because it's like good money. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm getting in at 3 o'clock in the morning and then having to start the day like as a normal day the next day. So
yeah, you can't reflect on the day at 3 in the morning. Reflect some other time during the day. You can do your reflection.
Yeah, I know that, and I think that's what I'm going to have to start to do, is whether I bring my book with me and do it after I open everything up, and then maybe I have like a half an hour where it's like dead, because then I get busy. But yeah, so I have to hold myself accountable for making it work.
I actually have been using that. You might find this exciting if you don't currently do it, but I should. This isn't my actual journal. I should bring it from over there. But I've been using. We're talking about this time to reflect section. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
But the time to reflect section, I've been using. Do you write the win of the day in there, or is that whole thing is the section that you've been not consistent with?
So usually I've been trying to get up and I'll try to reflect the day, like the following day. But sometimes I do forget what my win was. So I should almost write it when I go, as I go.
The win is very important, and it is valuable to do that at the end of the day, but maybe even if you just think of it instead of writing it before you go to bed, before you go to sleep, that is when your subconscious mind is going to be open. So you have to make sure right before you go to sleep, you're putting something very important into your subconscious. Either a win of the day, if it's really big and important and you want to sleep, reflect on that. If we talked about this before, I think if you want to wake up earlier and energized and excited, you could tell yourself that right before you go to sleep. I'm so excited to wake up and energized tomorrow morning. And now your subconscious mind just is, honestly, I've been doing it. Like I barely hit my alarm. I'm waking up at 5. I used to wake up at 7 and I don't even hit my alarm, usually before my alarm. And then the third thing, which may be the most important, is your goal. Is to say, once you say the actual goal right before you go to bed and get emotional, feel it. I often look at my vision board right before I go to bed. I might pick one of the pictures that I feel like I want to reflect on that night. Really making sure you try not to go to bed with stress, fear, worry, doubt, or anything like that. Try to reflect on something positive right as you're falling asleep.
Okay.
But yes, the other thing, the last thing I was going to mention about this reflection section is that you can also write future memories. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but you can actually say, like, I'm so grateful, like I'm so excited that I was able to, get my parents this trip that I know they've really been important to them and they've really wanted to. And I'm so excited that I'm going to give them the surprise of it tomorrow morning when they come over, and like writing a future memory. So it's similar to writing a present tense goal. It's writing a future memory. Oh my God. I just realized my mother actually is part of this section. She's not going to listen to this recording. Surprise! I'm getting a trip. But yeah, so you can write future memories. Once you get, like, it's up to you. You don't have to use it for that. But if you feel comfortable, you want to start writing future thoughts. It might be pieces of your vision board and you're reflecting on one piece of it at the end. Did you have one, Brenda, your accountability?
Mine's probably the same. That's been tricky for me to be consistent with the journaling and the 30-day challenge. I'm going to have to start over again. So yeah, those are the things. It seems just one little thing that happens in the day sets me on a different path, and away I go. And yeah.
Yeah, I think the most important is the lesson, like listening to the lesson, or listening or watching. Like you can just have it in the background. You don't have to be actively paying attention every time. And then writing in the journal, and then doing the like readings or something like that. It even just a blurb, like a paragraph or a sentence. Sometimes if you've read it, like the decision article, you could almost cheat and just think about it for a second. I remember that he says this important thing. So I haven't read it today, but just having a moment to reflect on whatever it is. So if you are kind of trying to focus on, if that's the thing, it doesn't have to be that particular decision article. I know you have spent some time with that one, but if that's relevant and important to you right now, then you could definitely just try to focus on it. Think about it. But yeah, I would say the lesson and the work and the journal are still going to be the most important ones. So don't want to be disappointed. If you're getting those done, you don't want to be disappointed if you're not getting kind of one of the extra things done. Awesome. Okay.
I just have a quick question.
Yep. Go ahead.
To book the one-on-ones with you, what's the link again, or is it in the email?
Yep. I can tell it to you if you want to write it down, but I can email it again. It's Keep Elevated, all one word, keepelevated.com/appointments with an S.
Okay.
/appointments. And then you just go to Nicole Kernahan, because there's 4 of us there.
Yep.
Just go to select Nicole Kernahan and then pick a time slot.
Okay.
And then I'll call you or send you a Zoom link.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Well, so great to have you guys. Have a lovely evening. And have a very uplifting experience, and I will talk to you next week.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.